you for accessing our mini session, Top 5 Best Practices for T&E Compliance in 15 Minutes. This session is part of our Timely Topics education series, which includes education and resources designed to speak to the current business environment. I'm your host, Naomi, and I have a few quick items to review before we get started. First, everything you see on your screen is movable and resizable using the arrows in the corners. If you have any questions about today's content, click on the Q&A widget that can be found at the bottom of your screen, and we'll be sure to get back to you via email. We also have additional resources and links to support today's session in the Resources widget that looks like a folder, so be sure to check that out. And then finally, to help guide us on future topics, we ask that you complete a quick survey at the close of the session. You can find it in the widget that looks like a clipboard. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, I'd like to hand it off to our speaker for today. Rachel?
Thanks, Naomi. So hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Sandameva, and I lead product marketing for NIA. And today I wanted to share some best practices for T&E compliance. But before I begin, there's two images I want to share to keep in mind key points around compliance. And so the first here is a photo of two people. The one on the left is me on a run, and the other is Usain Bolt. And technically, we can both call ourselves runners. But only one of us is actually best in class and really a runner. And the main difference, well, Usain trains daily. He coaches, he eats, he lives life to be the best runner in the world. I do not. I have the right clothes, I've got running shoes, and that's really where the similarities stop. And so the same is with compliance. You can buy the tools, but if you don't think about it consistently and manage it actively within your organization, how compliant are you really? Which then brings me to the second photo I wanted to share. So this photo is a debate between a player and the umpire at the French Open, where they still don't use technology to determine whether a tennis ball has gone in or out. And so in tennis, if you are on the line, you're considered in. If you're outside the line, however close to the line, it doesn't matter, you are still considered out. And so again, the same applies to compliance. You can be miles out or just a few dollars or euros off, and unfortunately, you're still non-compliant. And so as a side note, in tennis, this Hawkeye technology is available to make these determinations and debates much quicker. And the same applies to T&E compliance. There's also technology to make life a lot easier in determining compliance. And really, compliance is one of the top reasons we hear that customers buy Concur. And so as a result today, I wanted to talk about the 5 considerations that you can take as SAP Concur customers to ensure that your organization is fully compliant, both internally with your travel and expense policies, as well as externally with tax authorities around the globe. So I wanted to start setting the scene with potential compliance risk areas within a traditional T&E process that businesses need to be aware of. And really, there's 4 key areas. Firstly, it's during travel and booking spend. These risks are typically due to a lack of understanding of your policy or maybe lack of clarity. As customers, you will know the benefits of having Concur travel and expense, and the data proves it, actually. Businesses using an end-to-end travel and expense solution experience 44% better company compliance rates. So as an existing Concur customer, you're already doing better than most. The next area where there is potential compliance risk is at submission. Are the documents valid? Are the expenses actually valid claims? And in a recent study with Vance and Bourne, we found that 1 in 5 employees consider it acceptable to exaggerate expense claims. And so we found that a bit surprising. Thirdly, we need to have compliance at payment. Does the amount on the expense line item match the receipt? Is it a valid receipt to substantiate the cost? Is the spend during business hours or on the weekend maybe? How often is this checked properly? And lastly, but increasingly more important, is compliance with VAT or GST recovery. And so this is where the risk could be higher for organizations, as each local government authority has their own rules and treatments on what is eligible for VAT reclaim. And in fact, 54% of eligible VAT is not actually claimed. And this is due to the risk of getting it wrong. The rules are complex, fines are hefty, and the pain of audit is cumbersome, and the reputational damage is not desirable for any organization. So what can you do to better manage compliance with your business? So let's talk through the 5 considerations you should think about making if you haven't already. And so the first consideration is to make sure all of your claims are independently reviewed. So many of our customers today have configured notifications, flags, and alerts within Concur Expense. And this really helps educate and deter a lot of out-of-policy spend. Interestingly, though, when we anonymously surveyed managers, we found that astonishing 99% of managers approve out-of-policy expense claims without question. So, of course, the solution is to check or audit all claims. However, it's really important when we think about auditing as independence. And independence is incredibly important in this matter because if you think about pushing back on someone in the executive team for a more junior internal auditor, it's a really difficult call to make. So our policy audit service really helps customers do this today by providing 2 key functions. The first is receipt substantiation, which ensures that you are reimbursing only valid and correct amounts to reduce any entry errors by employees. And secondly, is policy compliance, which is specific to your T&E policies that your organization has, whether that be very standard questions or something very unique to your organization. We do recommend you do review 100% of claims, but there are customers that choose to focus on new employees, maybe high spenders, or senior executives. It's really up to you. The next consideration we want to think about is to ensure you have consistent controls and checks in place. One of the biggest pains for finance teams is the potential of an external audit from tax authorities. So much so that many businesses don't currently reclaim VAT today. And so when we look at our customer spend, our Concur customer spend for 2019, we estimated this to be about $2.5 billion left on the table. So what do tax authorities really want to see? Each local tax authority is different, but ultimately, if you keep in mind these 4 things, you should feel really comfortable that you'd be able to manage any external audit that arises. And so the first is a clear policy. Is your travel and expense policy easily accessible and clear to understand? Secondly, do you have the appropriate approval processes? Do your workflows and approvals account for high-risk categories like miscellaneous or gifts or high-value items? Thirdly, is the right documentation. Can you show the right document and provide that expenses are valid? And for those of you who are reclaiming VAT, does your team know what is actually a VAT or GST receipt, what is valid or what is not in each of the jurisdictions spend is incurred? And lastly, a clear audit trail on changes and checks. This is really where technology like Concur works really well. The system is clear on changes and there's a digital record which is easy to access. With Concur Tax Assurance, there's the added confidence that you are only submitting what is valid specific to local tax authority rules, which really leads us to our third consideration, which is to leverage technology to keep up to date with tax regulations. And what we know is that tax regulations are rapidly changing. VAT rates are constantly being updated, and 2020 posed a great example of how countries leverage their indirect tax schemes to manage economic growth during COVID. From March 2020, over 24 different countries temporarily changed their VAT and GST rates to help aid consumer spending throughout the pandemic. So for an organization who operates globally or has employees that travel globally, managing the VAT reclaim and keeping up to date in all the regulations is a near impossible task. Most businesses today are either doing nothing or managing this in-house with maybe an internal tax team. And in both scenarios, there's either risk to claiming something which is not valid or leaving money on the table to you that is owed to you. So there is a better way to maximize cash flow in your business while reducing the risk you bring to your business by managing it yourself. And so governments are also, around the globe, are turning to digitalization to better manage this process, really allowing them better access to data and easier to ensure compliance for any reclaims that take place in their jurisdiction. And the technology is here and mature enough to do this for businesses. So it's really the perfect time to consider the benefits of a digital solution to more effectively manage your business. And so we're so confident in this technology that we find in Concur Tax Assurance that we also indemnify our customers should you be audited on any of your reclaims. We take care of that for you. One thing to keep in mind is that for European domestic VAT spend, businesses can actually retrospectively reclaim up to 5 years in some countries. So if your organization is one that maybe hasn't done a lot of VAT reclaim in the past, it's time now to take a look at prior spend to understand if there is a way to reclaim that VAT back and bring money back into your business. Now, the fourth consideration we want to make sure to have is make sure you have the right data to influence and make decisions for your business. For those customers with policy audit, you can access that information which helps benchmark your progress toward policy compliance. We're looking at things like the percentage of reports that failed and passed the independent audit over what is actually approved by your managers. Get details across different employee groups and markets, and also understand which policies are adhered to, and focus investigations on why some aren't. Is the policy illogical, or is it misunderstood? And so when you're thinking about that recovery as well and compliance, a lot of organizations don't know how much they're actually losing, as they don't have the visibility or knowledge to know what's correct. And so take, for example, multi-VAT receipts. Many customers will simply default to the lowest VAT rate on reclaim to reduce any risk of non-compliance, or just not reclaim anything at all. And so Concur Tax Assurance really helps bring that visibility to organizations through dashboards which are driven by AI technology and provides a level of compliance which is able to take away the pain of the complexity of VAT reclaim. And so here I've got on the screen just some insights that Concur Tax Assurance can help customers achieve today to be more compliant and optimize your VAT reclaim. This is a starting point here. This is the overall dashboard view of really to evaluate how much has been accurately submitted by your employees. What meets the local tax rules to be compliant. The key element of this dashboard is to be able to get a precise view of your tax position. What reclaimable VAT or GST do you have? And what portion of that data actually meets those legal requirements in one centralized view? This second view is also important to get insight to the gaps that you may appear that render transactions disqualified. You can get visibility into entities, countries, or expense types that are not meeting those requirements. So understand, where am I losing potential additional VAT recovery? Are there some expense types or specific entities account for more than others, right? And having these data insights also means that you are audit ready at any time. You are now able to demonstrate to any tax authority the financial controls we've got in place to track and account for every single transaction for which you are claiming VAT. So those are just a few insights from our audit service as well as our tax assurance service as well. And so the fifth consideration is really about your employees, right? Making it easy. The majority of employees want to do the right thing and try to adhere to the company policy and guidelines. However, many times they maybe don't know the rules. And in this case, it's about meeting your employees where they are. And nowadays it's mobile, right? Expenses are typically incurred out of the office, so mobile functionality is key, as it encourages capture at point of purchase, reducing late submissions, and with expense, it provides an early insights to spend to finance. When it comes to external compliance, there are many countries which require receipts to be certified and compliant to regulations. So countries like France, Spain, and Mexico, to name a few. With Expenseit, we allow companies to maintain compliance without extra effort on the end user or back-end processor. Next is the functionality on Drive. Also allows employees to just simply drive, and that calculates the accurate mileage of their journeys to GPS tracking and Bluetooth integration with their personal car. And then also, as we look at tax regulations, many customers manage this today using a combination of our tax tables and expense types. And so this puts a lot of onus on the end user. So say, for example, in Germany, when you have different VAT rates for public transport, which is greater than 50 kilometers or less than 50 kilometers, most customers today will ask the employee to fill this out as their expense type, making it more onerous for the employee and exposing the company to risk should the employee fill it out incorrectly. And many times, there are no consequences for the employee. They will still get reimbursed. However, the company runs the risk of over-calculating their VAT. And so Concur Tax Assurance really just helps you manage this seamlessly. It allows you to reduce that expense type options you put in front of your employees, and then also manages to keep you up to date on the global VAT regulations to ensure you're fully compliant, both domestically and foreign. And so in summary, for best practice compliance solution, here are some considerations, right? Independently reviewing all claims. Secondly is about having consistent controls and checks. Thirdly, leveraging the technology that's available for you to keep up to date on regulations. Making sure you've got the right data at the right time in hand. And then lastly, but definitely not least, is think about ways to make it really easy for your employees. And so that is it for me today. If you want to understand more about anything that I've spoken to, please reach out to your account manager or feel free to contact me directly as well. I'd love to hear more from you guys. So thanks for your time. Naomi, back to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Rachel. If you'd like to check out additional resources available within the Timely Topics Education Series, you can click through the link that can be found in the resources widget. And then as a final reminder, please be sure to complete the survey before you go. Thanks so much for joining us.